All right. Good afternoon to those in the US. Good evening to those in other parts of the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Page One Power. It is our summit webinar series. And today we're going to be talking about SaaS and software. And we brought in a couple of great SEO experts from within that space. Unfortunately, Nadine from Zenefits won't be able to be with us today. She ran into a bit of an emergency, but we still got Alex and Ashley here. So we're going to go ahead and give everybody a few minutes to get into the webinar here. While you're joining, if you want to let us know where you're joining us from, where at in the world, we'd love to hear from you and see where you're joining us from. In the meantime, just wanted to kind of introduce the topic or the idea behind this webinar. Those of you who joined us in previous iterations of this, what we've done is brought in experts from different industries to come and share their knowledge with us. We want this to be a conversation. So we want to allow you to ask the questions that you have and things that you're struggling with as an organization. And we'll all be here to kind of weigh in and provide our advice for those. So go ahead while we're kind of introducing here and doing some seed questions. We'd love to have you start to type in your own questions. So you can submit those either through the Q&A or through the chat, and we'll make sure to get around to answering those. Real quick, let's go ahead, and Alex, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll pass over to Ashley to introduce herself, and then we'll dive into the questions here in a minute.
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much, Michael, for the introduction, and it's very nice to be here. So I'm Alex from a company called Atera. So we are a SaaS solution for the IT industry, mostly for IT departments and for MSPs. I'm with Atera for the last 3 years as their head of organic growth, which encompass SEO and email funneling and more of the organic type of process. In terms of me, I'm in the industry for about 12 years, worked in different companies, also in different agencies, did everything from SEO to paid market to organic to social. Pretty much had dabbled in every sort of industry, and this kind of shaped me into my approach and my mind into SEO. And I'm looking forward for everybody's questions.
That's great. Go ahead, Ashley.
Awesome. I'll just jump off that. My name is Ashley. I work currently for Divvy. I'm the SEO manager there. Divvy is an expense management company, so they provide software for other companies that are looking to manage receipts and reimbursements, all of the struggles that I think any company deals with. So I have really enjoyed my time there. It's been an awesome experience. I actually started just a couple of months ago and have been able to be in a position where we've just started from ground zero and started ramping it up. So have had a lot of experience and opportunity to apply the things that I've learned over the past several years and just like throw them into this software world and see how we're going to start performing. So I've loved my time at Divvy. Previous to that, I've worked at a few other software SaaS companies, so have had some experience there, and have also worked in the agency market as well. So got to work with quite a few different companies in the agency that I was at. And I always loved that, just having the opportunity to focus my SEO efforts and build those SEO skills depending on what the client needed, whether that was like local SEO or content-based, whatever it was. I felt like that really kind of helped me get that deep dive into all of the different aspects of SEO, and then helped me to understand what worked best and what didn't for these different clients. So I love SEO. I think it's an awesome, ever-evolving industry and market, and I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it today.
Sure. Thanks so much, both of you. And I'm excited. Actually, what Ashley talked about leads in really well to kind of the first question, is that, when you come from a variety of different backgrounds, dealing with different kinds of clients in different industries, if you're on agency side, also just as a career SEO, you probably get to work in a lot of different industries. But we'll start with Alex on this one. But are there any unique challenges that brands face specifically for software and SaaS when it comes to SEO? And what are some of those that you see?
Yeah, so I think the major challenge and also the major kind of persuading or convincing your industry or your company is always that long-term solution in SEO versus a more quicker solution when it comes to paid. I always look at it as paying rent, and then basically when you stop paying rent, you're being kicked out of the house, or you can start paying your mortgage, and then after you're done with your mortgage, the house is yours. So I'm not saying that SEO positions are for life or that's something you will stay, but they're much more bulletproof than basically shutting down your campaign and then not seeing your ads in total. So really trying to convince and trying to explain to that market that investing in SEO is a very important task, and not just let's go and dump everything to paid, see those ads, see that fast revenue. I think this is one of the challenges for SaaS in terms of SEO. I also found a very interesting in terms of statistics. So it's very also difficult for SEO to kind of stand out. So I found this statistic by G2. In 2019, there were about 35,000 SaaS solutions over 735 verticals. So it's really, and that was 2019. That's 2 years past from now, and the market is flooded. The solutions are ever constant, and it's very hard to stand out. So when you need to take that decision in terms of should I invest in SEO, the immediate question is how fast can we actually stand out versus our competitors? And when that question doesn't have a fair answer and the right answer, usually people start to think about other solutions.
For sure. That's something I see so often is that desire, especially like C-level and C-suite folks, to just like, how can we get money in, money out? And they like the consistency and maybe the more straightforward nature of PPC, but they forget about the long-term value. Like you said, it's the same as paying a mortgage versus paying rent. The SEO, you're building equity into your site. You're creating something that has more staying power. And so, yeah, it might cost you more upfront, but the ROI over the long term can be a lot greater. That's a great point. Ashley, how about you? Anything specifically that you've noticed between different roles, different jobs, and kind of coming down to software and SaaS focus that you've noticed is different or unique to that industry?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that Alex said, I probably would just go off of those as well. I think in the SaaS and software brands, kind of that focus, we focus on that funnel. So helping users down the funnel, there's like a very specific flow and helping them navigate. How are we going to get them to the site? How are we going to get them to learn the things that they're looking for? And then eventually subscribe or get a demo or download something. So rather than just like pushing a user to a site and then having them buy something or sign up, we're trying to figure out how to silo them into learning more about the software that we have and how it could help them in their company. So I think like while some industries rely really heavily on search traffic and brand visibility, which I think is really important and we do as well, SaaS and software are a little bit more focused on like the bottom line KPI. Mm-hmm. So like everything we do in SEO focuses around that. And that's been something big for me, learning how to, and I think this will go along with other things we talk about as well today, but like working with those leaders, like the VP of marketing, how am I going to tell him that SEO is super important and it's going to benefit those KPIs? So kind of having an open mind there, and how are we going to show the numbers, but also see, brand visibility, and then also see increased volume to these keywords that we're trying to target. I think there's a lot more focus in forecasting where like software companies have, a higher ability to measure these forecasts and these measurements. And so it's kind of like the balancing of the data that we're getting, and then how are we going to work off of that data and continue, pushing people into that funnel.
For sure. So go ahead, Alex.
Also, more to Ashley's point. So SEO for SaaS is a very cross-department dependency. There's a lot of dependency between different departments of your company in order to create a better SEO funnel. So you need your customer success to be on board, and you need your marketing to be on board, and your sales, because you constantly need to draw more information, more content ideas, more customer struggles and challenges in order to create better content and create a better provision of your website. So having all of those moving parts together is a bit difficult and can be challenging if not all of them are on board. And also for SaaS platforms, going into different markets, so localization across global expansion is usually pretty hard, because if something works for your market, a market that you know quite well you control the language, you know the messaging, you can kind of reach and understand the market really as your second skin. Understanding the market in France, Germany, Australia, Japan, different markets. This is a very hard task because different demands, different marketing solutions, and different competitors. So for SaaS, localization is also quite the challenge.
For sure, especially, yeah, like a brand like yours, Alex, where it's very international. Lots of people, it's important to understand those different markets and the folks that live there. Yeah, and just that idea of how much SEO interacts with other areas of marketing. We might talk about that a little bit more as well. But understanding your customer, I feel like, is so important, especially with SaaS, where it can be so specific on what a software is meant to do, who it's meant to help, who uses it with an organization, really understanding those people's pain points and how they search and what they search for, and how can you get your brand in front of them as they're looking to solve those, all play a role into that. That's great. So one question I did have, we talked about this a little bit, I think Ashley mentioned this, kind of having conversations with a VP, those kinds of folks. It's getting buy-in for SEO, right? That is so critical, and not just, having yourself that believes in it, but having others in your organization that support that. So we'll go with Ashley first on this one. So what tips do you have for the audience on how to get their bosses and folks in the and peers on board for SEO within their organization?
Yeah, it's a struggle sometimes. At Divvy, I've been so lucky to have people above me in leadership positions that have also had several years of SEO experience. And so they've understood a little bit better about like what we're targeting, what we're going after, and we've been able to have really constructive conversations around it. That hasn't always been that way though. And I've seen a lot of these gaps where, they want immediate quick wins and they want to see results now. And that's just not how SEO works. It takes time to build it. And it takes time to create a foundation for the SEO, especially when you're coming into a company for the first time and you're trying to pick up where they left off, but you're also trying to start, building new campaigns and starting a strategy that you feel will work long-term. That's something that I've noticed, and kind of going back to the first question, just like with the SaaS software world, it's a little bit more difficult in this sector because we're not just looking to rank for specific terms. You think of like a brick and mortar business that's looking to rank for, like, if it's a restaurant, like food near me, or they're trying to rank for very specific terms. Whereas in SaaS and software, we're ranking for things that are like pretty broad. And so the volume of these keywords is just like enormous. And so you kind of have to start looking a little bit closer to like long-tailed keywords that might be something that you can write content on to then target the audience that you're looking at, or the persona, to help bring them to the site. So it is like so much more involved in creating this strategy to bring awareness to the company. So I think my biggest suggestions for working with a leader and helping them understand this, because it's not something that you can just sit down and talk through. There's so many moving parts to it, and kind of what Alex said as well, like it's not just SEO that's going to do SEO, it's the whole company that's contributing to the SEO efforts. So I think it's really important to set goals in tandem with what your leadership is doing. Like I kind of said with the KPIs, finding a way to like match your goals to theirs and to help them understand why you're doing what you're doing. I think if they know that, then they're a lot more on board with asking for larger budgets or going after something that might not seem most sense. I think Alex and I talked about that a little bit, is we like looking at things that maybe not most SEO people would suggest, like finding those opportunities that aren't always the norm and then kind of taking a stab at it. I also think understanding customer intent and kind of helping, I think, leadership understand why the customer's coming to the site and how SEO plays a part in that. The SEO is obviously a really big factor in bringing people to the site. Organic traffic is. And so I think building kind of that awareness and helping them understand. And then I think just inviting them to build the strategy with you. I think that's something that I've done with my leaders quite a bit. Working with the VP of marketing, telling him, like, this is what I have set out, this is what I want to do, and this is what I plan to see from it. Obviously, those don't always go as planned. There's going to be wins and there's going to be losses. But I think involving them in that is really important to not only help them feel like you're doing something that's going to bring them success as well, but the company as a whole.
That's awesome. Yeah, no better way to get buy-in than to make them feel like they have skin in the game, make them feel like this is their creation as well. I think that's an awesome way to do that. That's great. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a perfect idea. I'm fortunate enough that my VP of marketing in Atera is actually a former SEO. So we kind of speak the same language, and he understands the struggles and the long-term solution. So I'm kind of in luck for this one, but I totally understand for people that coming as the VP marketing position, not from that world, kind of explaining them that bottom line. So to me, usually when I try to get people to buy in on SEO, I usually use two strategies. So first of all, I love data. I love data. It's something that is very important for me. And I think with numbers, you can actually take any message that you're trying to convince, and you can actually hit that bottom line. So I got some data here. So I did a little research, and in 2021, 59% of US customers said that they research products or service using in search engine before deciding whether to not make a purchase. That's 59%, but only 0.78, less than 1% actually went to the second page of Google to actually find something. So of course, we as SEO marketers, we know that famous quote, if you want to hide a dead body, the second page of Google is the best place to do it. So this is also a very interesting data. I also found, based on a HubSpot survey, that 69% of marketers have invested in SEO this year, so 2021, which is a 5% increase than last year. So obviously, people know what they're doing. If 69% of the market invest in SEO, you should probably do it too, right? I mean, if somebody says this is a winning card with 69% of chance of winning, you'll probably bet on that card. So I think using that simple data that everybody can understand, the board can understand, your CEO can understand, your CFO can understand that data, this really gets to help kind of put the message across. This is one thing. And to what Ashley said, understanding customers. So investing in SEO is something that can be beneficial for your entire business. You can really get into explore new markets and explore new opportunities based on content, based on customer feedback, based on doing that deep research into your customers' pain points and really finding out what content works for them, but then kind of pivoting the whole roadmap of the company in terms of what you found. Yeah. So, hey, we found this very big problem in the industry. People are really struggling with this one. We should maybe try to adjust accordingly and then win. And I actually found a very interesting line that I said is very relevant to SaaS. So I heard a line says, learning how to service, it's the SEO in SaaS is learning how to service the market, not just market the service. So you're basically understanding the market needs, the market problems, and really trying to explain to them, I see your problem, I understand your problem, my solution can help you, whether this is my solution and this is what it can do for you. So it's a different approach of how to look at it. But I think when you get those things across, I think those are pretty simple things that you don't need to be an SEO expert or been dabbling into SEO for years to understand and say, okay, yeah, we're as a company, we're going to invest in that.
Yeah, for sure. I love, there's kind of 2 points from both what Ashley said and what you said that I think go really well together. Ashley talked a lot about, she mentioned intent at one point and that always brings up search intent to my mind. Then Alex, you talked about how you serve the market. And there was one example, it was a brand that I found when I was doing research for a presentation that I gave earlier in the year. And it was a company that was in the payroll software space, so a software brand. And I think it was like 95% of their traffic was branded. So like they barely got any non-branded search traffic unless you already knew who they were and searched them by name. You couldn't find them in Google. So the first thing I thought was like, okay, if this company wanted to get more non-branded search traffic, I'm going to do some competitor research and see who is driving a ton of non-branded search traffic. And I found this direct competitor of theirs that was driving like 500 times the amount of traffic than the one site was, 500 times the amount of non-branded search traffic. And they were doing it just by answering questions that their end users have all the time about different parts of payroll, whether it was like net versus gross wages or how to file a, it's W-9, all the different forms that you might have to deal with. They're just answering questions that people who handle payroll and HR think about every day. And by doing that, they generated hundreds of thousands of visitors a month from non-branded search traffic. So that was something that just kind of, when you're both talking about those things like search intent, understanding what queries maybe are more informational in nature and being willing to invest in creating informational content, then also understanding your audience, those really go hand in hand.
It's important to understand that Google and YouTube kind of made, over the years, they kind of made the shift. So Google was usually a keyword-based search engine. When you type a keyword and then you get results and you're trying to kind of navigate through those results, while YouTube was a more question-based type of search engine, but they switched. Take a simple example like how to bake a chocolate cake. I'm gonna get everybody hungry right now. So if you used to search that in Google, you would just search chocolate cake. That's it, and you get results. And if you went to YouTube, you would search how to bake chocolate cake with strawberry. So you really have a detailed question, long form question. Over the time, I think over the last 4 or 5 years, those two mediums shifted. Now, because of the vast addition of information to YouTube, you just can type any keyword and you get results immediately. And the top results, more viewed, more better performing videos will rise to the top, while Google became a more search-based engine. So now you need to really put down the question and really understand what people are asking. And there's, by the way, in terms of practical tools, there's really interesting and really easy to use tools out there on the market in order to get those things across. So you can use tools like SEMrush for their content strategy tools. So you just type any keyword and then it automatically shows you the questions that the industry asks. There's also another tool that I wrote to myself. Ask, what's that? I'll find it in a second. Yeah, but more to your point, exactly.
Yeah, SEMrush even recently added that intent section on their tool, which I thought was a really cool addition there. Actually, any additional thoughts there when it comes to intensive search or kind of around content, how to bring that to your audience and connect your site with your audience?
Yeah, I know kind of every SEO has their thing and has something that they're really passionate about and thinking like, this is the main focus. This is where we can start and build off of. Content is that thing for me. I think content is a huge driving force of success in SEO, success in ranking for keywords and seeing pages come up in SERPs. I will say in like SaaS software industry, it's definitely a little bit more tricky because you are trying to rank for multiple keywords. But I think having a really strong content plan set up is one of the most important things long-term for SEO. Something initially like coming into any company or working with a new client, we start drafting that out. And I would say it's more than just like a blog post here and there. We've worked really hard at Divi, especially to start building out content that isn't directly associated to our product. So it's like agnostic, has nothing to do with Divi, doesn't promote Divi, but helps, the user or the persona that we're targeting to get answers to their questions. If we do that, then we build the thought leadership. So we build authority there, and then we can help them to learn more about why Divi would then help them in other areas of their business that they didn't think about. So having that intent of just helping the customer and understanding what they're needing, I think will then directly affect your success, your overall SEO success. So that's been something that I've definitely felt very strongly about, have done a lot of work in any company that I've worked with to do, and we've seen a lot of success from it.
For sure.
Yeah,
That is
top. I can also give another example. Sorry, one more point. I also can give another example. So we're always trying to basically create more content. So a year back, we were writing about 20 content pieces per month. We're now gearing into 2020. We're about to write about 100 per every month new content pieces. So that's blogs and case studies and more pages to the website. And this advice actually came from one of the companies that invested in us, our second round of funding. And they took another company, they invested from 30 blogs per month to 300 blogs per month. And basically over 6 months, they saw an explosion of long-term keywords and positioning and ranking. Everything kind of exploded just because they invest thoroughly on content marketing. And I'm with Ashley on this totally. In SEO, we say content is king. It is, or queen.
Or queen, yeah. Or monarch, or president, whatever we want to call it.
Whatever. Important DVD.
There's different types of governments, but yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, on my side, content is critical, even to link building, right? I have so many companies that come to us, they ask us for links. They're like, hey, just start building links to our site. And they've got like no content that really is helping audiences or providing value to them. And we have to, on our side, actually as a link building company, say, hey, link building is actually not the best idea right now, because if you don't have content to rank for keywords, or you don't have content that people want to link to, then we can build all the links into the world, but you can't rank for keywords that aren't on your site or that you don't have content for. So let's make sure we get that set up. Another example that popped into my mind as we were talking about that kind of that angle of like that Ashley mentioned of content that doesn't promote your brand, but instead is just meant for your audience. There was a company I was researching for a project a few months back where they wanted to rank for project management or project management software. And their main page that ranked as well as any other page on their site, I think it sat on page 2 or 3, was a page for their project management software. However, when you looked up like what pages actually rank for project management, it's all informational articles about what is project management. So that was a good example of how they wanted to get a page that promoted their brand to rank for a keyword that Google just didn't see it that way. They didn't view this as a promotional or conversion keyword. This is a informational keyword. So how much better off would this brand be by instead creating that informational page, kind of stepping away from promoting the brand and instead helping audiences on the web by answering that question, what is project management? And just like Ashley said, you can then attract those people searching for that keyword, get them introduced to your brand, and then eventually get them down the pipeline to where they can convert. So yeah, so critical to have content and build out a robust content strategy for your brand for multiple purposes of SEO, whether it's ranking for keywords or earning backlinks.
So I don't want to hog too much of the conversation, but you mentioned something really important that I think this is maybe this is the bottom, this is the seed of discussing SEO in terms of what it basically is. And unfortunately, 12 years in the market, I know that about 90% of people that do SEO, they think about what would make Google happy. This is that. Yeah. This is their MO. What can I do to make Google happy? What targets I need to achieve? And then customers will come, conversions will come, trials or whatever you're selling will come. And to me, this is such a narrow-minded approach, because you are a brand, you want to promote yourself. Yes, Google is the search engine that you're trying to rank for, but the 10% of that industry, think about how to create a better website, a more knowledgeable, a better experience, investing in UI, investing in that comfortable approach. When you go to a website, you actually remember that website. It provides you all the information. You see that website as an industry leader, a trusted source that you can go and you're searching a question and then you see the results of, yeah, I remember that website being very important and very knowledge-provoking website. Let's try to go that. And the results are coming. I mean, everything will happen. More people will start visiting your sites and your rank will go up. It's just that question of actually waiting for it. I heard somebody said that in SEO, ROI is always positive. It all depends on when it happens. Yeah. So it's basically that. But pivoting your mind, that SEO, looking at from a more wholesome approach, that more marketing approach of what can we do for our customers, what will be good for them, Google will come along. It's usually the case.
Yeah, 100%. Ashley, do you have any thoughts you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, going off of like the content conversation, I would say having, mind of that funnel again, the top level, top of funnel, I guess, making sure that you have that content on your site to attract those that are looking for answers. And I think that's really come down. There's been a few things I think that have helped us to make sure that we're answering those questions specifically, and then being able to build out. I know as Divi grows, we're starting to focus more on like the enterprise level company. So we're like trying to move from keeping with like that content that we're creating for small businesses that are looking for specific questions or answers to their questions, but then to also bringing content in for enterprise level companies that have like CFOs and CMOs that know a lot of these things already, but are needing additional answers. And that's where we want to build thought leadership as well. For all of these different areas of content, though, I will say creating briefs for them has been one of the most successful things that we've done. Working with writers is awesome. It can definitely be like helping them have that same vision for SEO if they haven't already, can be tricky. And so making sure that you both are conversating about the things that you need or that are important in this content, I think is kind of, it should be top of mind. But I think in our briefs, we've recently started adding sections to like the most important long tail keywords that we need added. And then a section for like the most trafficked questions that should be, answered right away. And in order to qualify for featured snippets as well, this is how we need them answered. So I think being really specific about those things and communicating those necessities to your writer can save a lot of time down the road to make sure the content is well optimized. And then as well, like that internal linking structure, making sure that things are pointing to each other. And then also kind of like was mentioned earlier, is building those backlinks to those pages. So having this overall view of where your users are coming from and what they're looking for. And then also being aware of what else is out there that we could grow into. I think that's something with SEO, and it's a challenge that we face every day, is that things are constantly changing. So I know when I wasn't at Divi, there was a lot of research being done around PPP loans because of COVID. And so there was a lot of small businesses looking for that. And so they like just attacked that and did an incredible job. They built out a ton of content around that and started driving just insane amounts of traffic to our site because of that one phrase that people were searching. So I think being aware of the market and what's happening in your specific industry, like in the software SaaS world, I think is really important. And kind of building that relationship with your content writers to make sure that that's happening, I think can provide some really awesome results.
Yeah, and also think that maybe one advice that I can give to anybody that's working with content writers is try not to close them into a box. Try not to kind of stifle their creative ideas, because usually when SEO goes to a content creator and he asks them for a content piece, usually the brief becomes really intense. So you need to use those keywords and that density and those things. It's important, but try to make them more creative, try to make them more express themselves. If you're writing a piece about something, you eventually will say the right keywords as it is, as you kind of write about it. You don't need to tell them you need to say this keyword 6 or 7 times. It's a very old-fashioned way of approaching content, but really get them to create. And also for us, what works for us in terms of content is we're really trying to put a spin on every content piece that we're writing. So if we want to go and discuss a specific sub-feature of our software, we will not say, okay, this sub-feature and it does A, B, C, D, and that's it. We're trying to come up with a spin. So have you ever stumbled upon problem A? Well, solution B. We're trying to get something that will get them more interested in reading, and creating those spins usually helps. Also, what tends to help is audio. So now people are on the hurry, they don't have time, and there's some really interesting softwares there that can read your content and kind of read it back as an audio file. And you can embed that in every blog. So now when they're on the road or traveling and anything, just hit play, and then that blog being read to them, which saves them a lot of time and get them that experience. So really, as a customer, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that company really invested the time in my time, not forcing me to read, but allowing me just to hit play, listen to this, go on.
That's cool. I love that. I love how also just kind of the briefs idea that Ashley mentioned, how it's a great opportunity for, as an SEO, for you to provide guidance and feedback to others in the organization, help their efforts support SEO goals. But Alex, I also like how you talk about freedom. The thing that came into my mind was almost like a kite, right? Like flying a kite, you got to have a string attached for the kite to fly and be consistent and survive. If you cut the string, it might just go off anywhere and end up crashing. So it's almost like those briefs are like the string for your kite. Let your writer fly free, but provide them some structure through those briefs so that they know, here are the key components that you need to include. Here is the direction to go in this. And I think as an SEO, you can use that as a way to direct those. I know with our team here, we create a lot of content for our clients, but also sometimes our clients have writing teams that want to create stuff, and we make them nice article outlines and briefs that tell the writers, hey, these are the main topics you've got to include in this article. And like Ashley mentioned, here's some internal linking recommendations, so you know what pages to internally link to. And it just gives them that structure that they need to create the piece that will fit strategically within the SEO goals.
I love the kite metaphor, but I think about how thin is that line. I mean, it's razor thin. Yeah. So you do have that control, but it's a very, very thin control. You just need to stream them the right idea. You kind of need to point them in the right direction, and then they can go and explore their own ideas.
For sure. Fantastic. Let's see here. We're cruising. Let's we've actually been able to spend a lot of time on just a couple of questions. I'm loving the amount of elaborating that we're doing here. Next question. This is kind of a fun one. I like to ask this. If you were to start a new job with a new company tomorrow, what was the first thing that you would look at on that website as an SEO? I think we did Ashley first for the last one. Let's go Alex first for this one. What would be like the first thing you dive into and start looking at?
Yeah. So first of all, technical SEO, very important. I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, I think. But of course, with the May's latest Google Core Web Vitals update, I mean, you cannot leave that unattended. So really helping that experience. Now, also in technical SEO, Google kind of looks at your competitors in a group way. It doesn't look on anybody individual. So if all of your competitors are not doing technical SEO and you're doing a hell of a job there, you will stand out immediately. It will make you jump right away. So this is a very important thing. Next to me usually will be competitors and what works. Of course, as everybody knows, imitating is the highest form of flattery. You can go and see what people are doing. So you mentioned about project management. I got that same feeling again. I was trying to rank for a keyword as RMM, which is basically abbreviation for remote monitoring management. I went to first page, 8 of the 10 results were what is RMM. I checked my website. Do we have the page like that? No, let's create it. And then after 4 months, top 5. Of course, with links and everything. I'm just pointing the bottom line. It's not that easy, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's competitors and what works for them. Deep persona research. I cannot stress that enough. And unfortunately, so many people kind of jump over that hurdle without any time investment in this one. It's really understanding the market. It's really understanding the different personas and what they want. We used to do that in an agency that I worked. We used to create virtual fake personas, fake avatars, put different characteristics, social economic situations, and basically create a vast a platter of personas. And then we would start basically putting all of our website features, all of our pages, everything that we can, and see how it falls on every persona. Was relevant, not relevant, really getting that 80-20 decision making. That helps tremendously with building the next thing, which is site structure and content strategy. Those are my 5 top MOs into any website and also into any industry that I'm trying to advise when it comes to really succeeding in terms of SEO.
Awesome. I love it. Ashley, how about yourself? Yeah, I think kind of understanding where to focus your resources would allow you the opportunity to drive results for SEO that would actually help increase revenue for your business. So I think focusing on where those efforts need to be, a lot like Alex said. I mentioned this, I started at Divi a couple months ago. So coming in, I had a clean slate. This was a new opportunity to build whatever I wanted, to go after whatever I wanted. And that was a little terrifying to me, but it was exciting because I could start fresh. I didn't have to start with any strategy that had already been done. We were just starting from the ground up. And I think that really allowed the opportunity to start seeing where are those gaps, what do we need to be working on right now, and what are little wins that we can do to help leadership see that we're maximizing on opportunities, but what are the long-term things that I need to be doing now to build those, be able to see those results down the road. So just echoing exactly what Alex had said, I see it kind of as I guess 3 sections, and these are very basic, but offsite, onsite, and then technical SEO. Those are my 3 big categories. I would see technical and onsite is two that sit on the same playing field. And then that offsite is dependent on the onsite. And so follows thereafter. So I would say, if I was coming in to look at a company or coming into a company and looking at the website, I would definitely first check the technical SEO. Think if there's like 404 errors you can fix, those really basic, simple fixes. And even with clients, when I was working in a marketing agency, like those are the things you want to attack first, because those were the things that will directly affect SEO pretty harshly. So I think being able to update those things, making sure technically that you're in a good space, and then being able to build out goals to continue improving that, I think is really important. For the on-site SEO, site structure, I think is one that's huge. I also, believe content to be incredibly important. And so I think being able to understand those personas, like who are you targeting, understanding like your goals and KPIs and bringing people to the site, like what's the call to action for this? What's the purpose of driving organic traffic to your site, and where do you want them to land? I think starting to build out a strategy from there, kind of what you mentioned too. We have a lot of these product pages and they don't really serve a great purpose for SEO because they have all the fun gadgets and moving parts, and they don't really help us a ton, but they have to be there. So I think starting to identify like what are our top product pages that we need people to go to, and how can we link out to those based off of other content that we can write. That's been a really big one in Ahrefs and SEMrush. I actually use both like every single day, all day long. Both of them help you to see what Alex said, like see what competitors are ranking for. You can actually just like pull in their URL and look up all the blog posts that they're writing. So I think it's a great start is to start seeing all that content and then basing it off of what you have. Divi was unique as we came in. There was quite a bit of content that had been, it wasn't duplicated, but there was a lot around like one topic. And we were kind of like pigeon-toeing ourselves into some of these areas, and we weren't maximizing on others. And so that was really important for us to catch within like the first week of me being there, so that we knew like, let's hold off, let's stop the content team on doing some of this, or explain why we don't want to keep working on some of these areas, and like, how can we pivot? And the quick way to doing that is to seeing what our competitors are doing. So we were able to find some new topics and then kind of pivot and start working off of that. I think it's just having an overall awareness though of, how are other teams playing into this? What are we trying to do? And then, where is our SEO now and how can it be better? But I think also being understanding of like, this takes multiple months to do. And so like, how can we get this started and show that, to the CMO or to whoever it is that you're working with, so that they can see what your vision is down the road.
Sure. Love that. There's so much I loved about that. One of the first things you talk about, competitor research. I love competitor research as just like a first step, whether it's trying to figure out how to earn backlinks and doing competitor backlinking to see how they're getting links and what's working, content strategy, see what content is, driving traffic and everything like that in your industry. Then technical SEO and site structure. How are your competitors structuring your sites? What are the sites that are ranking really well consistently? What are they doing? I mean, for those who are just starting in SEO, it's daunting to know exactly what to do with your website, but it's such a good starting place just to see what's already working. The people who are succeeding, what are they doing right, and take cues from that and apply that into your strategy. And I think that can really give you a good start on best practices and things to begin with.
Yeah. Also just like a small pro tip, that's for me. I always love to be creative with our content. So you can have about 95% of all your SEO efforts devoted to everything that we just said: technical, content strategy, competitors, personas, everything. But if I need to look at it, leave 5% to crazy ideas, really out there thinking. I mean, we just came out with a blog post about words of wisdom from the great Dumbledore for your IT business, which is what, I mean, when you see those things, it immediately makes you stop and kind of think about what are they talking about. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar, there's a great story about this agency in the UK. They created what was used to call the director's cut, if you remember that. So it's a very interesting story. They basically found the statistics about the number, so will be a bit grim. They found the statistics about the number of dead bodies in every movie, like the top 20 most deadliest movies. So it was a very boring statistics, and they found a way to actually show it in a more interesting way. So they created a little hub of that. And actually they're starting to get links and starting to get media coverage. The first one, by the way, who tweeted was the director of the movie that was ranked #1. And you can see his Twitter follow 2 hours after the first tweet, arguing with like visitors and followers about, no, our movie is this and not this. So it immediately creates that buzz. And when you can maybe tap into virality, when you think about content that may be viral, this can really, really make every process that you're trying to do and really speed it up. But you need to have about like 5% of your structure to think about those out of the box kind of crazy ideas, because they can generate a lot of interesting things.
For sure. I love that idea and that angle. It's one of those things we have to battle with clients sometimes, where some people want every piece to be like a viral piece. And it's like, well, no, you don't want to do that, because then you're going to strike out a bunch. But yeah, having a portion of that, like, hey, we're going to take a shot with this small percentage of our content. I think that's a great idea. That's awesome.
I will say along with that too is I like having like the idea of making sure that the content isn't just for SEO focus, and like making sure that it's creative too. And I think that goes in large part with the content team and working that into it. We've been working a lot lately to see like what else our users would need, or these personas that we're targeting. We've noticed that a lot of them are looking for templates for like really basic business types of like budgeting methods, just templates that would revolve around those topics, as well as like calculators to figure out credit score, things that are really specific to Divi. And so we've started to look into ways that we can improve our content by adding these additional features or providing these additional pieces to users. And I think that's also been something super helpful to not only tell like the Divi story or tell the story about our brand in our content, but also provide them with something that's useful that they'll continue using and be able to reference back to. So I love the balance between having the creative side, making sure your voice is in it, but then also fulfilling on the SEO side. And I think that's what Alex had mentioned. Like naturally it will come as the writer writes. Naturally the writer will be able to put a lot of those keywords in there. So helping them navigate what's most important for SEO, but helping them also have that, free like spirit about their writing to be able to write what they need to and really capture the attention of the audience.
Sure. And I like Alex mentioned earlier as well about like that desire to serve Google or make Google happy. And it's like, we kind of forget though, like, who does Google serve and who are they trying to make happy? Well, they're trying to make users happy and make a good user experience, get people the information that they're looking for. So sometimes we like get so worried about serving Google, we forget to serve the user, when really Google's trying to serve the user as well. And so it's almost like, sometimes you just got to cut out the middleman and think about the user. Think about how you can provide the best experience, the best information possible to them. Even when it comes to link building, that's something that we're all the time trying to help clients understand is, links. People say, hey, how can I get a link directly back to my product page? How can I get it? We're like, well, what person is going to want to link to that? Like, what are the real people out there that would, and why would they? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like I just want links to it, So you have to kind of start to think about the human aspect of links. And when you also start thinking about that, you immediately realize, well, people want to link to things that help them, things that provide them value. And so then you start to then see the need for that. And ultimately, as you get those kinds of links that provide value to users, those are links that are going to continue to matter in Google's algorithm, because that's the reason why it exists, why links exist, because they're a human ranking factor and a human way for people to look what they want. So yeah, I love that idea of just putting the user first in what you're doing. Obviously you need to have a strategy and SEO mindset behind it, but if what you're doing, if that goes against what's good for users, I would always serve the user first before trying to serve Google.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we got time for another question or two. And if anybody wants to throw their questions into the chat, kind of last call for audience questions here, if you want to throw those in there. But while we're waiting for that, we'll do this next one. And I think both of you have had a little bit of experience on either side, whether it's B2B or B2C. So what are the differences that you see between SEO in a B2B environment versus a B2C environment? And Ashley, do you have any thoughts on that? Let's you start.
Yeah, the immediate thing that comes to mind is I feel like B2B companies are looking to generate leads or generate, like quality brand exposure. Whereas I think B2C is helping visitors make an immediate action on their site. They're bringing someone to their site and they want them to make either a purchase or do something right then. So it's been really actually fun to get into more of the B2B area. And it's a little bit more intricate, I think, in figuring out the ways to bring the user to the site and then help them throughout this funnel. But I feel like that's been like kind of the biggest difference for me between these B2B and B2C brands is learning ways to help the persona find the demo request or the white paper or to download a newsletter. And that's something, that we work really hard to provide all of those different materials, where some of them will be gated. And so it's not something that SEO can really maximize on. But there are also a lot of opportunities, I think. And I love that in B2B, I think it provides us more opportunity then to build backlinks, to do internal linking, things like that, because we have so much like just agnostic content almost, and content that would provide a purpose for so many. I think just going back to this idea of like searching specific keywords that are just so general, it is hard to find, a specific company that's offering a specific software. And so I think building out the content that would be associated to some of those different keywords and figuring out down funnel how to really just help the persona get what they're looking for. I feel like that's probably the biggest difference between the two and something that I've noticed the most.
I love that. That connects well with what Alex said earlier about the importance of developing personas and knowing who these people are. How can you address them if you don't know who they are? So that's great.
Yeah. So for me, the short answer, is there a difference between B2B and B2C? Well, the short answer is no, in my opinion, because basically you're serving the same purpose. I wouldn't say you're serving the same search engine. I mean, all rules that being applied to B2B or B2C basically are rules being applied to a company or a website, and Google jumps and Google kind of ranks them based on same criteria. I mean, you are doing content, you are doing technical for B2B or B2C. It's basically trying to hit the same things that will make you rank.
Yeah.
But for B2B, as Ashley mentioned, you're dealing with usually a longer sales process. It's not immediate. You not go and you buy a shoe or I don't know, an iPhone. There is a longer process, and also there is different levels of decision making in companies. So when you're targeting, you're not only targeting the end user, you're also targeting various decision makers. And you need to think about the right strategy of what will make them make the decision. And they can change depending on the position of that person in the company or basically in that sales chain. Also, in terms of priority, I wouldn't necessarily start jumping on links for B2C, maybe not the beginning. I would invest in different things, structuring content. For B2B, I would maybe start with some brand links, some URL links, things like that, to just kind of get Google acclimated into the fact that you're building links and then building on that. So in terms of what you will attack or what you will target first for B2B or B2C may change. But again, going back to my initial response, you are still ranking at the same Google. So
yeah. It is funny though, right? Like we're trying to do the same things as the principles remain the same, yet almost the audience is what makes it different, and how you have to then think about things like content strategy and those kinds of subjects. I thought that was very interesting. And I know one thing that we see a big difference in when it comes to B2C and B2B is, especially when it comes to like link acquisition, is just the available audience for links, right? When you're doing B2C, usually B2C brands apply to a much broader audience because they're trying to sell to anybody out there to get them to buy their product. Where with a lot of B2B, it's usually a targeted, focused audience. Like, hey, we offer, like in your case, Alex, we offer a service for MSPs, for managed service providers. And then, so it's like, but then when it comes to link building, how many sites are there that are dedicated to just that specific audience? One thing we have to talk about B2B companies about is, for linkable content, that kind of thing, we don't want to just build content for the people who are going to buy from you. We need to think about how can we build connections with relevant audiences that might interact with the subject matter of your site or of the topics there. And so that's one thing that we often have to do quite a bit of, that in our experience, would be different between B2B and B2C is definitely from the content angle, things that we have to think about.
I think this is, by the way, a perfect time maybe to mention what we talked just before we went live, is that veterans piece that we did, which says exactly what you basically mentioned. So you are branching out. You're not just pigeonholing yourself to this IT industry and IT community. You're finding that really interesting spin, but you are linking everything together.
Yep.
So if you want to elaborate that, if you want me to elaborate that, no problem.
For sure. I'll even pull it up real quick, the piece that Alex is referring to.
Oh.
We got a couple more minutes here. Yeah. So this was a piece that we created that Tara created for this IT training and resources for veterans. So the idea, right, is there's tons of websites out there providing career resources to veterans. So how can you bring your subject matter to that audience? And so the way that we thought about that, I think it's true. I think it mentions it in this article that IT is one of the biggest fields that veterans go into after leaving the military. And so it was a really good connection there to create a piece for veterans, since that's such a big career option for them. And it now connects the site to this highly relevant audience that now they can attract links from.
Yeah, and also again, I as I mentioned previously, this piece and also this process that we did about that specific industry and those specific people were something I was very proud of, being also an ex-military by myself. So I really love that idea, and it all goes down to what I said previously: finding that spin, really kind of sitting down, maybe having a think tank, maybe conversing with your peers, and really finding those really interesting spins. And if you think about it longer than a minute, you'll find very, very interesting things. You can link every industry into different industries. It's just a matter of really investing that time.
For sure. I love that. So we're just about at the end of time here today, but did anyone have any other final thoughts they wanted to share before we jump off today? Any final bits of wisdom? I think we're all good. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us today. For the audience, thank you to Alex and Ashley. I think you both had just some amazing wisdom for the audience. If you want to check out this recording afterwards, we're going to be publishing that on our website. We'll be sure to send everybody out the link so you can check that out. So I'm Michael from Page One Power. And again, thank you to everybody who participated today. And we look forward to connecting with you all soon and continuing to share some knowledge. We'll see y'all later.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.